A great day for Raptor Nation as Malachi Flynn wins Eastern Conference Rookie of the Month. So, in this video, we take you through how Malachi Flynn went from a rookie who was struggling to break out into the NBA all the way to getting this award. Let's get into it. Welcome Raptors fans to Amateur Sports. This is the channel where you get NBA content with a focus on the Toronto Raptors at least 4 days a week. So if you like what you see from today's video, you want more of myself talking about the Raptors in videos just like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below to show your support to the channel. Thank you so much for getting us to 2.8k subs, and we are on our road to 3,000 subscribers. Also make sure to check out the Twitch streams, twitch.tv/amateur sports, where we watch along every single Raptors game plus a whole lot more content. But today's video is all about Malachi Flynn. How wouldn't it be? After winning the Eastern Conference Rookie of the Month for the month of April, it's time to celebrate Malachi Flynn. Our 29th overall pick has come a long way since the start of the season, where he was really struggling to knock down shots to, kind of being a prominent figure right now. With all the Raptors being injured and not playing, Malachi Flynn has had to take on a bigger role, which has significantly helped his development, and I think this award is a testament to that. And as far as this award goes, it's not any sort of elite status award. It's just a cool award, and it's something that the player himself, Malachi Flynn, and his family, guys like Eric Flynn, will be celebrating, and this is probably one that he's going to remember. And this is obviously a very nice confidence boost for a player who has kind of lacked that over the course of the season. I've been saying throughout the whole season that he just got to get the confidence in the NBA going, and then he will start to break out. And remember, this is only his rookie season, obviously, so he's got plenty of room to develop. But over the course of the month of April, we've seen Malachi emerge as a very good playmaker, and we already knew how good his defense was. That was apparent even earlier in the season, before we got sent down to the G League. But his offense was what was struggling, and we're going to talk about in this video how he managed to get from, the guy who had a lack of confidence, was a bit of a shell of himself on offense, to this point right now where he is taking this award away. So first, let's go over the stats over the month of April, the stats that did in fact get him this award. So for starters, he was much better in terms of his points per game than on the entire NBA season, where he's almost averaging about 6 points per game. But over the course of the months of April, he averaged 12.7 points per game on decently efficient shooting as well. 43% from the field, 41% from three, and also 88% from the free throw line. He also tacked on 5 assists and 4 rebounds to go along with those strong offensive performances. And regardless of just the statistics, Malachi Flynn has also shown great ability on defense and great ability to be a playmaker for this Toronto Raptors team. And I think a lot of this award went down to just the little things that maybe the stats don't tell, because again, Malachi Flynn has shown over the course of this month that he is a very good playmaker. There are some people who would say that maybe he's better at running an offensive set than Fred VanVleet. Obviously, Fred VanVleet, the much more talented player at this point in their careers, but Malachi Flynn, maybe he can orchestrate an offense a little bit better. And I've been saying about Malachi Flynn that his ceiling is kind of like, it's not quite the level of like a Chris Paul or a Jason Kidd, but that's his style of play. He's not going to be the most efficient player. Like Jason Kidd is a career 40% shooter, but that guy's in the Hall of Fame because of how good he was at running an offense, how good he was at playing defense. Just a pure point guard. That's what Malachi Flynn is destined to be, and he's showing those sort of tendencies with the Raptors. So for his size and undersized guard, those shooting stats, those are fine. Those are stats that you can accept for that position. Sure, you'd want the field goal percentage to be, at least 45, but 43 for an undersized guard who's a rookie is a-okay for me in the month of April. And that 41% three-point percentage is very nice to see. And a big part as well, I think, of Malachi Flynn winning this award is, the reason now I'm starting to call him Mr. Fourth Quarter is the fact that you can rely on him to knock down big shots in the fourth quarter. I think in the last week or so, that's kind of tailed off, and yesterday wasn't his best game. Neither was the game against the Lakers. Definitely had some struggles against the Lakers, and definitely had some struggles last night as the Raptors fell just short of the Clippers. But, over the course of the month of April as a whole, I think that his fourth quarters were where he was playing at his best, and that is what probably took him over the top for this award. Because if you look at the other guys kind of competing for this award, other guys who are finalists here, not much to decipher in terms of the statistics here. Points per game is kind of even everywhere. Obviously rebounding stats can be a little bit of a discrepancy when you look at centers like Isaiah Stewart, but as a whole, kind of even here. I think part of the separation might have been the net rating, where Malachi Flynn is one of the only two in the positive here, but Malachi Flynn is a much bigger effect than Emmanuel quickly on his team. So I think that's where everything came into play, which eventually got Malachi Flynn this award. And again, it's not the best award in the world, obviously, but it's just a nice little touch for this specific player who, again, has been lacking confidence. And I think that is the difference here. The confidence thing is what has reshaped Malachi Flynn. I think at the start of the season, especially not having a full training camp, with all the COVID stuff going on, difficult to get really settled into a team this season. And Malachi Flynn really struggled out of the gates for the Raptors. Got drafted 29th overall, really showed out in the preseason, which made Raptors fans very excited. We were already calling him the steal of the draft. And maybe he could be a steal down the road, because I've definitely liked what I've seen from the 29th overall selection. I think we were very fortunate to get him to slip down to the 29th overall selection. In the pre-draft wish list that I created, Malachi Flynn was second on my radar and first among point guards, so was very, very happy when the Raptors managed to get him there. But as the season started, the shots just weren't falling down. You could see he had, the IQ, the basketballing ability, and the defense. You could see he had all that stuff, but the execution on offense wasn't quite there. But what's good about this is that execution is something that you can correct over time, something you can work on. But the decision-making is very hard to reshape about a player, especially at that age, 22 years old. You've kind of got it or you don't in terms of the decision-making. But the execution is something you can kind of tinker. You can tinker the jump shots. You can tinker the shot selection at the rim. You can tinker these sort of things. You can tinker the layup game. That's why Malachi Flynn is kind of starting to find himself, because he was always making the right decisions. When to pass, when to shoot, the shot selection. He was always making these sort of good decisions, but the shots just weren't falling down. But then, as confidence grows, he went to the G League, where he started playing a lot better, getting a lot more touches, seeing the ball go through the rim a lot more often than he was when he was playing in the NBA. Then he comes back into the NBA, where, he's not quite playing as much, but then Nick Nurse all of a sudden decides that Malachi Flynn has to be a guy coming off the bench every single game. He wanted consistency, somebody he could rely on every single game. And this kind of caused Terrence Davis to get traded, because Terrence Davis wasn't reliable off the bench. You didn't know what you were going to get out of him, because he was so hot and cold, mostly cold. Decision-making wasn't there. But Malachi Flynn had the decision-making. He was a reliable source off the bench. That's why Nick Nurse started going to him more often. And, eventually Terrence Davis got traded for a second-round pick. Malachi Flynn became the guy that we needed off the bench to be the handler, to be the bench guard. And I think he's growing into this role quite nicely. So the confidence thing is starting to come to him. He's a very big confidence player. You're already seeing that as he's shooting. But what I like is that, he's kind of got that killer instinct in the fourth quarter, knocking down those big shots and still being able to be that playmaker as well. And Malachi Flynn, kind of an interesting stat about him is that he has the highest efficiency among players who have played over 300 minutes on and one. So the best efficiency for getting fouled and still hitting the shot. So that's a little bit of an interesting stat. Not a big stat, but just something interesting about Malachi Flynn. Knows how to draw the contact and knows how to finish through the contact. And enough of a sample size having played 300 minutes, and this stat only being about guys who have played that much time. So at the end, Malachi Flynn, a good month. This is going to give him a bit of a boost. So let's talk a little bit about how this is going to affect him, maybe progressing towards his ceiling. Because I talked about it a couple times this month, or like a month of April, because Malachi Flynn was a good guy to talk about because of how well he was playing. But what is his ceiling going to be? And I mentioned earlier that it's kind of like a pure point guard, Jason Kidd, Chris Paul-esque type of player, and somebody as well made a comparison to Tony Parker, which I kind of liked. It's not going to be the most spectacular player, but it is a guy that you can consistently rely on to be your point guard. And still put up some decent stats, but he's not going to be the guy hogging the ball. He is going to enable other players on the court to be the best versions of themselves. And Malachi Flynn, who plays so well in the pick and roll, and I think part of the reason he's been playing a lot better is that Nick Nurse is allowing him to play in the pick and roll a lot more often, whereas earlier in the season we didn't see that as much. Malachi Flynn was the best point guard in the nation at running the pick and roll. In fact, the best player in the nation at running the pick and roll. He won Mountain West Conference Player of the Year and DPOY but a lot of that, player of the year stuff came from running pick and rolls, and that's probably why the Raptors drafted him. Nick Nurse finally in the month of April, maybe at the tail end of the month of March, started letting him get these pick and roll situations, which is also really helping his game because his decision making at whether to go to the rim or kick it out and find a good pass, those are also excellent about Malachi's game. Again, the IQ is already there. It's just the execution that we need to see continue to develop. So as he's progressing towards the ceiling of that pure point guard status where he's enabling other players to be the better versions of themselves, it's just going to help everybody that's on the court around him. I think Malachi Flynn is going to be a great guy to run a bit of a bench mob unit next season because I think that the Raptors probably are going to want to get a center in the offseason and have Kem Birch and Freddie Gillespie, maybe even Kem Birch and Chris Boucher coming off the bench. Having a Malachi Flynn to run pick and roll situations with Kem Birch or Chris Boucher, it's a bit of a mouth-watering thing to think about. I think that's going to be a very good combination to have, and maybe we can start to get back a bit of those bench mob vibes that we had a few years ago with our up-and-coming talent. And maybe we get a draft pick who also is coming off the bench. Maybe he's going to be starting, which puts maybe Gary Trent on the bench. Lots of solid players to come off the bench. Malachi Flynn needs to be able to run that bench unit. And again, all these guys around him who, maybe are a little bit more ball dominant. He allows them to be that sort of player. He allows them to be themselves and get out of the way and make their game come to them easier. There's a lot of guys on the Raptors who demand the ball and need the ball a lot, like Siakam, like Van Vliet, like OG Anunoby. And I think that Malachi Flynn, a point guard of his style, will enable them to be better than what they can achieve with maybe a point guard who needs the ball a lot more. And I think that we're seeing signs that Malachi Flynn can emerge as a starting point guard in the future, maybe even over the course of his rookie contract. I think that maybe 2 seasons from now, we're looking at potentially trading Fred Van Vliet because of his contract and running with Malachi Flynn as a point guard. Bring in another asset, start Malachi Flynn, and maybe see what you can get for Fred Van Vliet. That's a long time away. I'm just kind of speculating that maybe in the future, we're looking at a reality where Malachi Flynn, because of his pure point guard tendencies, is going to be running the first unit, which would mean we can trade a guy like Fred Van Vliet. I don't think it'll be the best situation to have two 6'1", maybe even still 6'0" point guards together. I don't know if that's going to be the best system or best sort of tactical approach for the Raptors. So maybe we could be looking at trading Fred VanVleet. And also maybe if the Raptors are trying to trade for a superstar, maybe Malachi Flynn is a sweetener in that deal. We really don't know. But what I think we do know about Malachi Flynn is that he has these point guard tendencies. He's a very smart basketball player, and he is starting to really improve. And this Eastern Conference Player of the Month is absolute proof of that case. I'm excited for what Malachi Flynn can bring in the future, and I hope he is a big part of this Toronto Raptors future. So Malachi Flynn, Eastern Conference Rookie of the Month. Let me know what you guys think his ceiling will be in the comments down below. But if you did like this video and enjoyed it at any point, make sure to hit that like button. Also consider subscribing to Amateur Sports for more content just like this. Also follow us on Twitch, twitch.tv/amateursports. Hit the subscribe button next to my head and check out other videos in the channel that you might enjoy. See you again next time.